conversation. It's very unique because of various things. You are all going to discuss a book that is written by one of your classmates, and again going to be discussed by 4 panelists. So it's very quite interesting. It will contribute to the further discussion among you on certain academic matters. And I did not get a chance to go through the book, but it appears that it's about Jaswan's own community's own clan, and that actually offers very fascinating possibilities to look at one's own identity, one's own history, one's own geography, and social and political dimensions. And also, as somebody who has been doing this program at IIT Madras from very specific disciplinary perspectives, I hope that these disciplinary perspectives would enable you to look at our own history, our own story, our own identities from the very specific vantage points of theoretical and methodological foundations of each of these disciplines. For example, what does a historiography mean? What kind of perspectives that a discipline like sociology or anthropology can provide to one's own society, one's own community? What does the lens of gender provide you with a kind of new insights? How do you engage with the existing theories? How do you develop your own framework? How do you distinguish between, say, mythology and history? So these are all some of the important, takeaways that you must have come across, or you should have come across as students of social sciences, which would definitely, enrich your forays into this kind of academic as well as creative writing. I think quite a lot of your seniors are into writing, and I think your senior Siddharth came out with a book last year, and quite a lot of your seniors are into books. So I wish I congratulate Jaswan for this, because again, as you say, it's very difficult to manage the academic pressure here on IIT, and he's also come out with a book while managing it beautifully. So congratulate Jaswan. And all of us
That's a difficult question that you can find in the presentation. So, first of all, I would like to thank Sushant for giving me this opportunity to moderate your session. And you chose a very healthy set of panelists who cannot say no to your request anytime. So, to open the forum, I would like to ask or begin with a question like, could you trace the journey of how and why did you choose to write this book?
So, let me be very practical and how things have gone by. So this was a project which I started around 2021, and as you all know that we are from the batch of HS20 and we are the COVID batch. That is, we are having the online and the offline mix kind of thing. For at least 1.5 years, we all were at respective homes, and we were still trying to figure out that how the situation of the new normal would be. That was the first part. So it's very important to have a required environment for us to even think in that manner that can we go and write some book like that, or can we do something to know about our own history. Writing a book was a very distant idea. I never even thought of course not writing a book. The first very question that I had in my mind, because I'm a resident of Delhi but a native of Himachal Pradesh, right? I have spent my 20 years in Delhi NCR, that is somewhere in Noida, Indrapuram, Ghaziabad, and the very core Delhi. And very rarely you'll find or come across a surname which is like Jaswal, Jaswal. Everyone will recognize you as Jaiswal, Jaiswal. There are multiple Jaiswals. The most recent one you all would be knowing Yashasvi Jaiswal, right? He's representing Team India, he's playing in that. But very rarely you will come across a surname like Jaswal. I was very intrigued by that fact. And whenever I'll be going to my own paternal or maternal place or to my own district, the moment you enter Himachal Pradesh via road, if you ever have a chance to enter Himachal Pradesh or tour around Himachal, please take a road trip. And the first district that will come across would be Una district. That is my district, UNA. And the most common names you'll find across the boards would be this only: Jaswal Enterprises, Jaswal Traders, this, that, left, right. And that intrigued me. That was like, okay, what's so special about our culture or our clan? Like, what's so special about our surname that is only available and only found in this particular area all across India, even Delhi NCR? You don't come across this name. People don't know you. And most of the time they'll mispronounce you, they'll miswrite your name. That was the first part. When this curiosity came up in my mind, this was a long before, like much before I even entered IIT Madras, that I need to find out who exactly I am. First thing. Second thing was there was a competition that was organized, by NBT, that is National Book Trust. So that was a competition. So when I said in 2021, right? So in the year 2021, they were having a program where you were supposed to talk about the freedom fighters, the unsung freedom fighters, or the freedom fighters from your respective district or clan or community. That's what the competition they had. And as a matter of fact, I was like, I should try this up because I had time. And I would say we were very fortunate batch, or at least for me, I was fortunate enough to have that much amount of time because classes were online. We were in that trimester mode, and then I had to keep myself engaged. So the best way was to let's look around and let's try to look for this history part of my own culture. So this was the point where I thought that let's give it a shot. I wrote a synopsis. I got into touch with Professor John Bosco, and he was like that how you should go about this. So that was my starting point. That's when I really started penning down like what I'm really marching towards. So till then, what information did I have in my hand? Nothing much. I have a kind of our clan goddess. So in my native language, we call it Kul Devi. Kul is nothing but a clan, right? And then Devi is nothing but a goddess. So that means that our clan has originated from some goddess. That's it. That temple or that particular entity is existing even today. That was the first information I had. Second information I had was that there is a fort. I could see the fort. It's still there. The fort is still there. You all can also visit and all. I've been seeing that fort for the past 18 years. That was the second information I had. And third set of information was the people, the stories that we hear from our grandparents, like paternal, maternal, and then from the local people, and that's all. That was the only source of information I had till 2021 when I started this whole journey. And yeah, that was the beginning point. That's how I started. And then when I started, I won't say that I was very rigorous of this whole process. I was putting in day and night to meet my ends. Like it wasn't the case. I'll be very honest to you. It's very demanding process. And like a professor said, maintaining balance between acads and a lot of things were not so easy. So from 2021 till 2024, there were multiple things that were going around. And you won't believe, till 2022, within a span of 1 year, I could write somewhere around 2.5 chapters of the book. The book totally consists of 5 chapters. 2.5 I could write within just 1 year. And it took me next, till 2024, the next amount of time to just write how many next 2.5 chapters. And in fact, the last chapter I wrote in this summer only, like very latest summer. And then you can just think that it was all about time and commitment. So I was not committed to this whole book printing or the book writing process, but I was very committed to the fact that I need to know who exactly I am. This was the only question, this is the question that still was bothering me, that, who exactly I am? Well, who is my clan? Like, where is my existence? And, then Aristotle also says, and then Socrates is also there, that living an unexamined life is not worth living, right? So yeah, I was like, I need to examine myself, I need to know where exactly I am. So that was the, I think, the curiosity point, spark from where I started this whole journey. And yep, that's that.
Before I move on to the panelists, one more final question from my side. Yeah. So it would be useful for the students also. What are the research methods that you are utilizing towards the writing of this and your politics of publishing such a book in the political atmosphere that we find ourselves right now?
Okay, let's go with the first part, right? Okay, the methodologies that I employed. So because I'm very naive to this whole process, I'm not aware that how to do an academic writing or as such. And I won't call this particular book an academic piece of writing also. It's more towards the native people can understand the language has been used in such a manner that my set of people or the targeted population can understand it in the best possible manner. And in the most easiest way of communication that I can translate my whole idea of history and then what exactly has gone by to my own set of people. So I was not very sure that what methodology, what things to put upon. And that's where a professor comes in, Professor John Bosco, wherein he has guided me in the initial phases that how to go about it and what to go about. So very first thing that we all do in our, even for our term papers and everything is to do the literature review, right? is to go through the official records and go through the records that have already written the history or have written at least the anecdotes or something or the other about my particular clan or culture. So that's where my journey began. So I would say I went, because I'm a resident of Delhi, right? So there are multiple libraries in Delhi. For example, Jawaharlal Nehru Library in Delhi, which is very famous for its records. So there I went through a lot of British records. That was especially what I recall is like there's a book called Punjab Hill Chiefs, the Hill Chiefs of Punjab State. It has been written by all the colonial authors. It's way back, and I've even referred that particular set of readings in my book. That from where I got the idea about this. So the starting point was to go through the literature, right, which has already been written, and I would say it was not an extensive literature, but it was in bits and pieces. It was like a jigsaw puzzle. There were around 4 or 5 records. For example, there was a archaeological survey, there was a geographical survey of Kangra, there was an archaeological survey of Kangra. A lot of things were there. Now the question everyone will be thinking, like, why am I talking about Kangra? Well, this is because till 1971, Una district was part of Kangra. And even before 1971, Kangra itself was part of Jalandhar Dor, which was part of the Punjab presidency. Himachal never existed as such. So, therefore, if you see through the records, the information was in bits and pieces. So I had to really look out for the information, had to maintain a record of it. After done with the literature review, the second part was to really go to the ground and talk to the people. I went to the capital city of my own clan, which is called Jaswan Chronicles. It's still there, you can just check out on the Google, and where the fort exactly is located. And then I visited my whole district. I visited all around the people I talked to, and even my villagers. I talked to paternal, everyone, even to the priest, everyone I tried to talk to, right? So the thing is, everyone knew something or the other about the clan. Some story or the other they would know. That there was once a king who has done this. There was once a queen who has done this. There was some reference that everyone made. But the thing was, no one knew about their identity, no one knew about the exact dates, no one knows about the pinpoint information about the whole anecdote. So it was in the air, everything was abstract. So I took a record of all that, and after taking a record of all that, second was to bridge the gap between people. So for me to bridge the gap between what is being told by the people and what is there on the records, that was the most challenging part. But that's where I think so, kind of my ingenuity also comes in, and that's where an author's intelligence is also required. What is a myth, what is a fact, and what exactly might have happened, we can only predict per se. And that's what I've done in the book as well. So basically, I've tried to bridge the gap at least, or try to make connections with what exactly has happened and what exactly might have happened, might not have happened, and how it has been recorded, and how it is being perceived by the people. So that's how my whole approach to this whole thing was. The second question about the politics of it. I will agree to it. The very fact I said in the beginning itself, I got an opportunity because a subsidiary of a government, PSU, that is NBT, National Book Trust, is done by the central government, right? The very fact that they have run such a program is to basically make us identify or to ignite us that you go, look out for your identity, to basically understand who you are. Who are the people from your particular clan or community or district they have done something. So, of course, it is the given set of environment that was very conducive enough for me to give an attempt. So because I said there was already an NBT's kind of initiative, though I couldn't qualify, right? But then it was enough for me to at least publish a book, right? So that was the first part. Second thing, right, regarding the publishing of the book, that when I went to the publishers, that I have this set of thing to publish and all. A couple of things were very clear to my mind. That my target population is very small. My aim of writing this book is not to capitalize or to earn money or to become a full-time author. That was not my aim. The aim was very simple: to basically identify my whole clan, my whole existence, and to give this whole kind of repository of history and make it a one-stop solution. For example, if there is another Sushant Jaswal that is born in my clan, he should be able to read and go through the history by simply reading this one book, rather than going through 10 texts and then going through multiple talks through people. I felt like there should be just one stop solution, and that should be my book, and that's what I wrote for, and that's how I marketed the book also. That is only specific to Himachal kind of thing, and even the people who bought my book at large or at max was for the people from Himachal. So when I was looking for the publishers, I was only looking for someone who can print around the North Indian sphere. I even contacted the Madras publishing houses, many publishing houses, for example Blue Rose, and then even Rupa and all these people I tried to contact. Everyone was willing to take up this thing, but the only condition was that you have to pay some required high amount of money, and then you have to invest more time to edit, you have to invest more time to make it marketable. Because for anything to get published and to get commercialized, it has to be presentable. So the way I write might not be presentable or might not be suitable to the eyes of the people the way they want to it. For example, if I want to capitalize this, the editor or the big publishing houses wanted me to convert this whole thing to a story. A story, a fictional thing kind of thing, which we can relate it, and then somehow we can make it market, we can capitalize it, and then we can earn a good amount of money, which was not acceptable to me. And then I was like, it's better to go at a small publishing house, which is only region specific, which can just fulfill my kind of needs. The needs are to distribute target population, be somewhere around North India, so that the delivery charge is less kind of thing, and just print my book as it is, kind of, after editing and whatsoever is required, and not to make it, not to marketize it, not to capitalize. So yeah.
Off to the panelists right now.
Before we get started, I just want to say I'm very proud of Sushant. No, really, like it's not often that someone from our degree and from this place goes back to their roots, uses the tools and the education you've gotten here to sort of like understand your past, use the research tools and methodology you use here to look back at yourself. Of course, there are a lot of things that I disagree with in the book in terms of how he's framed it, and he knows it. But at the same time, it's amazing to see someone like Sushant who's very unapologetic about his Himachal origins. Like he lives in Delhi, but at the same time he understands and remembers that where he's from, his ethnic roots. And in an institute like this, where you're pushed to be this sort of like accentless, originalless, metro like crowd, I really admire what Sushant's done here. So one of the things I'll bring up, I think the other panelists also have their bit to say. There are certain ways in which you can interpret and understand your clan's position with regards to the Rajput caste and Rajputization and Sanskritization and migration flows and things like that. And also the second, I'm not going to detail right now. I think I'll let the other panelists go into it a little bit. Also the question of one thing which should have improved maybe the readability or the understanding specifically of history with regards to your clan, I think, would be how it's not just an oppositional thing with the British, right? In terms of how we were colonized, there are also a lot of procedures and understandings of how we were complicit in colonization. So I think that aspect, specifically not just in terms of the clans or the kingdoms or the kings around Una or the region of that Pahadi kingdom, but also how people from your own clan, because this is the case I think for all of our histories, and if you look back, there's a sort of tendency to have amnesia about the different ways in which we were complicit in colonization. So I think that would have been something which would have been very interesting to pursue, which I think could be a further avenue of scholarship for you.
Yeah, okay, so Yatin has just kind of given a broad outline on what I would have also liked to say. I really liked the attempt. In fact, for the first couple of chapters, I felt like it was a very nationalist historiography sort of work, but towards the end, I think you have tried to be more self-reflective. In fact, the last chapter, you have just openly said that Jaswan clan became like robbers and stuff like that. And obviously, there's crude language, but it's kind of self-reflective in its own way. I appreciate that. More than the post-colonial amnesia, I would say there is parts where, from a very feminist perspective, there is this loss where you kind of say that white men came and they kind of tried to take away Sakti and infanticide. It's just a narrative which you are, I think, trying to say. I read the part, I think I've underlined it. Lord Lawrence also felt the need to curb social evil practices as part of white man's burden, like female infanticide and Sati. So I feel like these lines could be problematic because these are evil. These are really social. This is a different sort of problem. So that kills the narrative and also doesn't give the space to women's voices in that sense. It's very from a very male perspective. The book has been written, but yes, I think Vishal.
So, as Yatin and Nancy said, it's a very nice attempt about going back to the history. But one personal dilemma which I come from a similar reason, and we have similar kind of histories which are not written much, but people we hear from the people in folklores or they tell us. So one specific dilemma which sometimes I face after coming to here, getting to know more things. So it's like that such histories which we write are majorly based on the caste, and the sense of pride is associated with it because they fought a lot of wars and battles. So that time it was necessary to have some kind of identity which brings people together. So this was one of the identities which brought people together and to fight against their enemies. But like as we move in today's society, a progressive society, we all like want to end up the caste system. So sometimes when we hear about a lot of pride about our caste or about their histories, we get a feeling to attach to it, still attached to it. But then again, that dilemma comes that are we living in a progressive society or not? Are we still attaching to that history and following the casteism? Because this casteism is not only about the oppression which we are doing, it's about being related to it in the concept itself. So, what's your take on it? Like, can we have the histories, or can we have the casteism, or is there a middle path where casteism ends and still we are associated with the history very much into it?
Okay, so let me try to put forward my stance to all the three respective panelists. So I agree to the point that Yatin said, because the very fact that I come from the same community and clan, and giving an objective view to the very fact that to the clan of which you are part of, it's very difficult. That's first part. To which I have tried to recognize and at least I've mentioned the biases or the very fact that where I might have got wrong, where I can get wrong in the very book itself, because I'm not sure that which part of it is able to tell you the subjective opinion of mine and which part is objective. But of course, I have made my best attempt to make sure the whole book is at least self-reflective. Yeah? I understand that where I can get bias and where I cannot. So let me put forward in this manner. For example, Nancy had put an example. So that example is for, I've given a stance. That stance says about, it's a report that was published by G.C. Barnes in one of the surveys that he did for Kangra. And in that particular report, he says that the very reason why the Jaswan clan got detached, or we are the first offshoot of Katoch dynasty. So the very original dynasty of Himachal Pradesh is Katoch dynasty. Katoch dynasty has been existing since, like, they have their 450 or somewhere around 500 kings still alive. The 500 king is still alive. So the Katoch dynasty is the dynasty which has been running since Mahabharata, since even before Mahabharata. That is, it's running since Satyug, when Lord Shiva and Varun was there, when the Vedic gods were there. It has been running since then. So the king has been existing till then. That's what the history has been mentioned in Shiv Puran at least. So that dynasty has been existing in Kangra till today, and the first offshoot of that dynasty, the Katoch dynasty, was the Jaswal dynasty. So J.C. Barnes, this particular person, in his report, he wrote that the very reason of us getting or detached or to becoming first offshoot for this was for us to have or us to marry kind of our sisters, or basically to marry within our family, or to basically marry within the village or anything. That's the reason he gives. But if we see that there is a contrast, right? He says that we got detached from the very first dynasty in the first instance because of this. Then what is the reason that again we see in 1868, somewhere 1861, where Lord Lawrence passes this particular act, and this particular act he says that you're allowed to marry even within kind of same families. So when he says about families, he's only mentioning about the Gotra system. So I'll just inform you about what is Gotra system in our culture, or in our kind of in Himachal culture. We abide by the very fact of Gotra, right? There are around 7 rishis, right? 7, 8 rishis, right? We are the kids of one of those rishis, right? And each one of us has some of the other Gotra. And as per our village and our culture, no two people from the same Gotra can marry. And the logic is, it can lead to, what do you call, chromosomal or anomalies, or the gene defect can be there. That's what the logic is put forward. So that was their logic. So the idea is that in the 1861, when particular Lord Lawrence came in, we had an agreement among all the 5 dynasties that we are allowed to marry among us, because by now we have been so far from our kind of parents or fathers, or the gene has gone into multiple alterations, right? This was the time when we were talking about 500 or 600 years back, right? When we were the first offshoot from the Katoch family. By the year 1868 or the 19th century, there are around 6 offshoots from the Katoch dynasty itself, including Katoch dynasty. So there is Katoch, there is Jaswal, there is Guleria, there is Sabaya, there is Dadwal. There are 5 and there are 6. So basically, when you have 6 different communities, all have been the same offshoot from one particular clan, and that is Katoch. That means everyone is going to have the same Gotra. So each 5 dynasties have the same Gotra, that was special. Ideally, you cannot marry as per the Hindu laws, and even if you see otherwise, as per the Gotra laws, we cannot marry within the same Gotra. That is still followed in at least some of the families, that's what I know. So to overcome this problem, the problem wherein the whole region has been inhabited by the 5 dynasties of the same Gotra, where you can't marry anyone within or around Himachal Pradesh, then there was an agreement framed by the colonial people, including the all the 5 dynasties, that okay, now we can marry among ourselves, and it's fine. It's better to marry because there's no relation, because it was long time back, somewhere 600, 700 years back, we got detached from the main dynasty, hence there shouldn't be any this gene alteration problem or anomalies like that. That's what the reason they have given. The second reason to this, that why was this brought up, was the people, or the I would say the people of that time, of 19th century, if you don't get your daughter married before the age of 25, right, there was something, a very exploitative manner, the way they used to treat the women, and it was a very bad. And there was female infanticide, because you can't simply marry your daughter, and you don't want to send your daughter to far off places, also outside Himachal Pradesh, Canada or something. So the very idea of infanticide had come up because everyone was of the same Gotra, so people were feeling women as a burden. And if you can't marry your daughter before 25, then also it was felt as a burden, and then they used to exploit them a lot. The idea of sati, child infanticide, everything was existing even in Himachal Pradesh. Yeah, that was the very reason why this idea was brought up, and then why this particular commissioner said that as a white man's burden, we have to even civilize them, which I agree, which is true. And this is a social evil, and that has to be stopped. And the reasoning which I gave you about the gene anomalies and everything, I mentioned it the way it has been mentioned, or it has been interpreted, that why they used to follow this tradition, why there was female infanticide, why there was sati. So coming to the question of Vishal, right, that why do we tell histories, like why am I telling all this? The simple question is that for us to even correct any social evil, or to get rid of any social evil, it is very important to know the history behind the social evil. For us to know the problem, it is very important to know the history of the problem, the root cause of the problem. For example, today we get rid of the problem itself by only going above the roots, right? That is not knowing the history, let's say, but just looking at the fact, oh, there is sati in this particular community and we have to stop it, or there is female infanticide going on. Bringing a social change, I think, is one of the most difficult changes in any sort of change. Economic change, financial change, or any sort of change is still less time consuming than compared to social change. The very fact about, let's say, the marriage among kids, right? The small kids marriage, that still goes, right? The child marriage part. It has been abandoned since ages, and still we find certain areas, certain places to follow it, right? So the very idea that we have to get rid of the social evil is first to know the idea, the history behind it, that why it is there. So then my attempt to identify this whole history is to basically understand that where are we exactly standing in this social position. What are the really causes? What are the reasons of which we are trying to justify, that why we used to do, why we are still doing, why marrying within the same Gotra is allowed in Himachal and not in other areas or in other Hindu kind of communities, and how it got into converted. So to know all these things, what happened, what exactly, I think so history is important. Now coming to the fact that I'm talking about, it's about the pride and everything. Well, my job was to portray the wars, the attempts, the activities that my ancestors did, and I have portrayed it in the first 3 chapters very, very fairly, and that has been recorded in most of the official records. Maybe Akbarnama. Akbarnama calls Jaswal community as the Zamindar with an RD. That we were such of high demeanor that even being Zamindars, basically we were raised out of our own fort, and we were made Zamindars by the very Mughal ruler Akbar, and we were the only community who raised our voices against Akbar twice in his tenure. And as a matter of fact, he has tried 52 times to conquer Kangra, and even after trying to conquer Kangra fort and Kangra, he has not been able to do so, because it was our community who has been fighting him for the ages. even though we are not the main community of Kangra, but like we said, we are the like the martial race kind of very warrior kind of people whose job is to only fight. That was our job, and that's even recorded in the Akbarnama, and that's how we are addressed as Zabida with an army. That is the reason also why we did the first revolt of independence in Punjab Hills. In 1848, we fought the first war of independence, much before the 1857 revolt that we see. 1848 itself, we had waged a war against the Britishers itself, and that was again the harbinger of that particular whole the idea that how to wage war and where to wage war and why to wage a war against the Britishers was again taken forward by our set of people. And again, it's recorded and it's there. And then multiple other reasons that I've given in the book. So of course, my aim is not to tell you all about my pride in my community and everything. The aim of this, the whole history was to make you aware about the fact that how the required set of people who should be given the required recognition, like my set of people. So the person whom I'm talking about is no one but Raja Umaid Singh, right? He's a person who should be given the respect of freedom fighter, but he has not been given even till date. On the other hand, his counterpart, that is the Raja of Kangra, let's say, he has been given the tag of freedom fighter. So you can still check out in the Kangra website, if you can just Google it up. In the history of Kangra, you can go and check out who's the first freedom fighter or the freedom fighter of Kangra of the Katoj dynasty. The king of Katoj dynasty's name comes first, and no other king's name comes first. In fact, there were 3 people who fought the war for this independence. And as a matter of fact, it was in 1909 when Lord Minto himself gave the title of Raja and also gave the title of kind of freedom fighter, which was also given to 6 kings all around the district, all around the Himachal Pradesh or the Punjab Hills. Himachal Pradesh is called as Punjab Hills. So there are 6 kings. Within these 6 kings, you won't find 2 kings. One is Jaswal king and the other is Dadapur king kind of thing. Now, why their names are not there? I have tried to explain in the whole book that what might be the reason, but the very fact is that the people who were part of the revolt have been considered as freedom fighters even by the government of India, even in the current date, even in the list of freedom fighters if you see. But on the other hand, people like me, like my community, who have put in their heart and soul equal amount of heart and soul, are void of any recognition, not even in any history book. You just pick any history book of Himachal Pradesh, in fact, you won't find his name also. Why is it so? And the whole idea is about that only, that where did we go wrong? Or it's not about the pride, I would say, it's about the recognition. And my attempt is to simply identify that what went wrong, and second thing is how can we correct ourselves, how can we socially become more moral and can become upgraded version of ourselves by excluding all sorts of social evils. So yeah.
So just one question in terms of contextualizing what you've written, specifically in terms of writing about history. So India was not an entity in terms of it being non-porous, right? You had huge waves of migration coming in, going out, specifically in the region in terms of like Central Asia and things like that. So I think there is a certain obsession with tracing your lineage back in terms of purity, back to the Vedic ages and things like that. So but in that understanding, it's the fact that histories can be changed, right? Especially if you're talking about such huge time spans. And there are Vedic explanations and things. Let me give you some context. So I come from a place in coastal Karnataka where there's a ritual of ghost worship. It's called Kola. So whatever in terms of the gods or the deities or the daivas we worship, slowly over time there have been partial Vedic explanations for the origin of these deities. So I was thinking, this is a direct question right now, if you were to contextualize in terms of, I'm sure there are tribal and folk customs also in Himachal. So if you were to contextualize that in terms of migration as well as tribal ethnic folk practices, how would you go about that? I think that would add an extra layer of exactitude, or it would be a more comprehensive history is what I'm saying. And I'm just asking how you would go about that, or if you have any information about that.
So as far as I could trace it back, I could not find any kind of the impurity, not exactly impurity, but the way this purity part, like we have talked about, right? That we are just an offshoot from an existing dynasty which is already there in India. So if we think that is there any way that we have migrated from some other place, or like is there any way that we have being mixed with some other communities and something else. So I would say that yeah, that might be the possibility, right? And talking about the Vedic kind of thing, the only tracing that I've done for the Vedic part, which I could really find, was about the Katosh dynasty itself. And we say that the whole Jalandhar area is nothing but a body of Rakshasa. So it's nothing but a Rakshas who got killed by Lord Shiva, and then his body spanned out over the region between Vyas, Satluj, and Ravi. And that's the whole. And the Kangra is nothing but the ear of the Rakshasa, and that's how the name of Kangra is there. Kangra means Kan Kagad, that means a citadel of ear. So that's nothing but the ear, that's how we say. So in Vedic terms, if we talk about, there's no explicit mention again. And if you talk about the tribal part and all these parts, it's very difficult for me at this particular point of time, or even while I was going through, that to even categorize that is this a tribal act or is this a normal kind of like martial act kind of thing, or you being a warrior or kind of a very elite act. It's very difficult. It was very difficult for me. For example, the very idea, the Kul Devi that we have, the mother goddess in our area, like to whom we pray even today. So the very simple two rituals that we have is that if an offspring is there in your family, then you have to take it to the particular temple, and if you get married also, you have to take your wife to the particular temple for you to have blessings of the Kul Devi. That's how we say. So if you trace back the existence of Kuldevi, it's very recent kind of thing, I would say. It's just 900, 800 years back kind of thing, not much old. And what's the reason? It's nothing but a Sati. The goddess got Sati, and that's the story. Why? Because there was immigration, there was marauders, right, who were trying to attack the temples and all. Like I mentioned, also this area was also called the Uttar Kashi of Himachal Pradesh, this particular region, Jaswan Chronicles. You have a Jagannath temple in Jaswan Chronicles, which is not there in anywhere else. Like other than the main Jagannath Puri temple, you also find the Jagannath temple in Himachal Pradesh. You also find the Kamakhya temple in Himachal Pradesh, which is not supposed to be there because it's already in Guwahati, right? And there are multiple other temples in and around this particular capital, Jaswan Chronicles. So that was the case. So it was one thing is very clear that this place was called Uttar Kashi, wherein people, scholars would come in here, they would invest in time to learn, study, do a lot of stuff. And then, of course, I'm pretty sure they would have a lot of exchange of ideas, a lot of exchange of, they would have a social life that would have sprouted. That's what I believe in certain sense, but I haven't mentioned that in the book though. But then the very reason I say that why we are called Sadhu Rajputs is the fact that we are even scholarly people. A Rajput who even believe in intellectual part, not just in weapons, but even in intellectual part. So yeah, coming back, so the very reason that why she got Sati was that her husband got killed in the war. And the only option she had was to, do Sati. Once she is done, the thing is that's how we are still, kind of praying her. And still we're praying her, and that's the only reason, and that's the only thing we know, that she is the reason why we all are existing. Because the king whom we had, he's not the original Jaswal king. If you would have, it's this part of the book, this is kind of very interesting. So, after the second king, after the first king, Raja Parabchand, he did not have any male hair. And why did not have a male hair? That also I mentioned in the book. It's a spell, it's a curse kind of thing. That's what the people believe in, right? But the matter of fact is that we never had a male hair, a male Jaswal hair kind of thing for us to take our clan forward. We only had a daughter, right? And that particular daughter is the one who has become the Kul Devi right now. But the husband is like how the husband turned himself into a Jaswal person, or how he accepted all the community and culture, even at a time when he was supposed to take a bride to his own particular district or house, is something to think about. But how the story goes is very simple. This was a person who was a devotee of Lord Vishnu, and then he wanted to go on Char Dham Yatra, and he goes for the Char Dham Yatra. And once he goes for the Char Dham Yatra, he gets surprised when he sees Lord Jagannath, because Lord Jagannath is not a usual representation of the god that is supposed to be seen there, right? In the sense that you don't see the normal figure. He has big eyes, a very different kind of smile, and it's a very different entity altogether. That was, he was surprised with the fact, and he wanted to take one such idol with him. So the name was the Raja's name was, he was from Chamba, and then Chamba district he was, and then his name was Raja Parabchand, right? And he was like kind of very influenced by it, and then he wanted to have one such thing. And then the mythology says that that's what the people say, and that's what even the people from Jagannath Puri also say, that that's how this might have got transferred. He literally had asked some sculptor to make some facsimiles of these idols. He got 4 idols. One was Jagannath, and then 3 idols of Subhadra, and Balaram and Krishna in a very rare material kind of thing, very rare metal made of 8 alloys or something, very rare it is, and it's of high value even today. So all these things were taken by him, and the only condition was wherever Lord Jagannath wants to settle himself, he'll settle himself there, and you can't just decide, where you want to establish his temple. So he starts walking from Puri till Himachal, and that takes around 3 months. Like a normal day, he keeps it, he keeps it in the, what do you call, in the capital city of Jaswan. And once he keeps, surprisingly, he's unable to pick it up. Why is he unable to pick it up? What exactly happened? I have no explanation to it. But what the story says that he was unable to pick it up. And then once he was there, and then the king of Jaswan, that is the first king, he said that I'll allow you to make a temple around this place. I'll allow you to, worship this particular god only if you marry my daughter, kind of thing, and only if you become the king of my community and my clan and would take this community and clan forward. So that was the condition that he agreed to. And that's how, he became part of our clan, and that's how we all are existing. And that is the reason we are not praying our king, but we are praying our queen. So we still don't pray our king. As a matter of fact, the mausoleum of our king is just 1 kilometer away from our queen's mausoleum. So when we are saying Kuldevi is nothing but a mausoleum kind of thing, where her body was burned, kind of thing, where she got sati, right? So where her body has been where she got sati, that is a particular place where we have a temple. And his husband's temple is just 1 kilometer away from it. As a matter of fact, no one visits that place. No one even knows that there is a place like that. But we all know there is a Jagannath temple, but no one knows that next to Jagannath temple is a mausoleum of the king of Jaswan, who is the second king of Jaswan. So no one knows about it. As a matter of fact, now then the question comes that why are we, so particular about our queen? Even though she's a queen, right? She didn't have any particular power. She didn't run the community or anything. But it's just that, she had done something which, for the sake of community, for the purity of it, like getting sati. And second thing, she's the only original kind of heir to our first king. We still consider her as our mother, kind of thing. And that's how we call ourselves clan. Because the only thing that runs common among each Jaswal is that we are the kids, or the, because of her, we are existing all together. That's how we are having compatibility. And that's how they is.
Yeah, so see, even in your narrative, I feel when you are describing, do you realize that you are constructing a sort of very sacred space, and it can be problematic in terms because it is based on the sacredness myth making, and you can claim territories, you can claim a lot of things using these sacred spaces, and which is I think happening in your narrative also. You are kind of claiming the narrative using this myth making too. A lot of times this geographical territory and sacred territory get mixed up, and there's no boundary between them, it gets blurred. I think there problems might arise. A lot of times there is, you are claiming something like, Orientalist vision or something like that. I did not understand it. Like, you are just denying them. Obviously, that's also a narrative, but in the book, I felt like there was some sort of, I didn't feel, it felt like you were very political in those terms. So, yeah, maybe we can talk about it later, but yeah, Sushant.
In just addition to the last two questions, both questions are about the propositions and like little bit of about the acceptance of such histories. So when such folklores are told by a person of some community to other community or even people of their community, they don't tend to accept it, especially the warrior caste of North India I'm talking about. They tend to like just deny these folklores which are not having some written mentions. So one Yatin talked about was one of the proposition, and the other one which you talked about was Raja Umed Singh was your last king who revolted in 1848, and he was being subjected to a lot of atrocities by East India Company, while the king of the Katoch community, Pramod Chandra, was not subjected, and he was mentioned as a freedom fighter, while Raja Umed Singh was not. So there also the same concept comes when you have just denied the like folklores of Katoch community. So there you mentioned that Raja Umed Singh died at the age of 68 because of the atrocities, and Pramod Chandra died at the age of 36, which was a natural death. So such propositions, like if we just see a natural life, then at the age of 68, a death will seem more natural than at the age of 36. So such propositions How do you feel like people of other community or even the people of the community you belonging to, which are more critical about their history, should have these propositions? And if there is anything additional which we can do to this proposition which can make them more acceptable?
So yeah, I was very particular about those facts to ensure that nothing comes as a talk out of air. Everything should have a concreteness because then only people will accept. Otherwise, there's no point in accepting. In this world of rationality and reason, we need to have certain grounds. So when you mentioned about that fact, the very fact is that the Katoch king, he did not die naturally or he died naturally. That is a separate question, 33, which I have still kept it as a question. And he had even kept it as a question that, what exactly happened to our Raja? Did he also die naturally or not? I still don't know. But what was very clear was that the way Britishers have recorded this whole history, that was very clear. That, this particular set of people have done the revolt, out of which these set of people have literally fought for their community. And then if you see that in the earlier mention, there are like 3-4 communities. Suddenly, you're boiling down to 1 or 2 kings or 1-2 communities, and you're saying the other communities are not there. And even when you're recognizing the kings of Himachal Pradesh, it's only 6 people out of which the 2 are not there. And all these are official records, nothing out of air as such. It's particularly mentioned. And when they mention that, the king, like why I said Raja Umaid Singh, because Raja Umaid Singh, along with his 2 next generations, that is Raja Jai Singh and Raja Ran Singh, both were taken along to Almora, Uttarakhand, and both were taken into exile. They were there. There was no king per se. On the other hand, for the Kangra, that was not the situation, right? The Kangra king had come out after a certain point of time, and his lineage keeps on going, right? And that's how the thing is. But for Datarpur, that is the Dharwals, and for Jaswals, right? Our next 3 generations are exiled. We don't come out, and there's no logic, there's no interpretation given by the British kind of records. But then you come across letters sent by Raja Jai Singh, Raja Ran Singh to Raja Gulab Singh. Raja Gulab Singh is the king of Kashmir, and he has been in support of Raja, like Jaswals a lot. That is the written records that we have, wherein he mentions that could you please request the Britishers to get me out of this jail so that I can at least have a freedom and at least take my community forward. If not community forward, at least I should have freedom. Because Raja Umaid Singh have that, Raja Jai Singh is there, and his son, Raja Ran Singh is also there. So 3 generations are there, out of which 1 is missing. And the second person, Raja Jai Singh, has rights to Gulab Singh. And there are records wherein Gulab Singh has literally written to British EAC, East India Company, that I'll pay you this much required of money. Please leave this particular set of Rajas. Why? He asked that you leave this particular set of Rajas because he needs to get his daughter married to the Jaswal king. As a matter of fact, the very fort of Ramkot in today's date is on the border of India-Pakistan. And that fort is kind of very beautiful. If you ever get a chance, please go through it. So that border is very beautiful, and that fort is there, and the whole district is kind of India-Pakistan region. The last inheritors of that particular fort or that particular royal palaces in Ramkot are the Jaswal kings kind of thing. How Himachal Pradesh king became a king or got a land in Jammu and Kashmir is the way that the Gulab Singh, who was the king of Kashmir, he married his daughter to one of the Jaswal, that is Ran Singh, I think so. After he got married, he gave in as a form of dowry or as a form of gift, he gave that particular area to that person. So yeah, I totally agree to the fact that nothing has been sent out of the air. For people to accept it, you need to have concreteness in the arguments, and that's why I even given references in my whole book that from where I've taken this particular fact. Yeah. Talking about the political scenarios, right? The way I have addressed the Western authors or the Orientalists, the way I have mentioned them, right? When I'm talking about the colonial authors or the colonial writers who have written. Because these people are officers, commissioners, and everyone. These are governor generals who have written records, and they have been in a very colonial position kind of thing. And they were supposed to write in a manner that was appealing to their imperial queen or to their set of, the whole system, right? Because for them to rule, for them to, make it valid, for them to even show that where the fault is and why they need to be ruled by, right? It has to be made very much clarified. And that's what I felt when I read their readings. To a certain extent, they were true. Like, for example, the removal of, the social evils. That is very fact. But the second reason in the same letter, when he says that we need to remove the social evils, the second, reason he gives is that That is the period, for everyone's context, that is the period when this first Anglo-Sikh war happens in 1846. Maharaja Ranjit Singh, loses to the Britishers, and this is the period when Himachal kings were not in support of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, because he had colonized or annexed the whole Himachal hills, and we were supposed to pay him revenue, and there was a lot of war between Sikhs and us, as a matter of fact. And to counter that particular thing, the Britishers had waged a war, and when they waged war over the Sikhs, the Anglo-Sikh war that happened in 1846, this was the same period when even all the hill chiefs or the rulers, including my ruler and the various Katoch and everyone, waged war against Sikh. So they were basically fighting a two-front war at one point of time. So as a matter of fact, it's very understandable that you are bound to lose a two-front war for which you're not prepared. And as a matter of fact, the Sikh dynasty lost its control over the hill areas, basically the Kangra, the Una, and everywhere they lost. And this is the letter when he writes, one of the reasons why he gives that why you need to be colonized by, or why we should be your kind of leaders, or we should be helping in governance. The first reason he gives is that even though you have defeated the Britishers even though you have defeated the Sikh during the time of First Anglo-Sikh War, it's not because you have put in the required efforts. It's basically because of us. We waged a war against them. They got defeated from these particular forts, and they were less on army and less on ammunition. You people had a chance to defeat them. Hence, you have no reasons to take pride. You have no reasons to take back your forts and areas. You have no reasons to be proud of yourself. Hence, all the reward, all the respect that needs to go to the Britishers, because we fought against the Sikh, and hence it's our right to take over all the areas that were under the Sikh rule. So as a matter of fact, they took over the whole hill area, right? And the second reason they gave about the white man's burden. The first reason they gave about this, and that's how they get colonized. To which I do not absolutely agree, right? Like, it was like he believes the way he have written letter, the Lord Lawrence he has written the letter. He was the commissioner of Jalandhar Dwab at that point of time. The way he writes, he needs to prove, he shows that what you have done, as a matter of fact, against the Sikh rule is of no use, kind of thing, and there's nothing to take pride of. And the second thing he talks about is that of course, social evil. That part I totally agree. That's fine. He's basically justifying that why we should be ruling you. But then first part is simply very, very clear that you just cannot rule over yourself. You just can't take care of yourself. You need to be tamed. You need to be civilized, for which we should be having it. So this is one instance. There are multiple instances where Orientalists have given false reasons to prove that why you should be ruled by us. There are very reasonable instances, which is true, right? Which I have mentioned in the book and which I also agree. But the false instances I have counted, criticized, I have critiqued. But then by the end of the day, I say that it's up to the reader how you want to take it up. Because a lot of things are left open-ended. The last chapter itself is open-ended, and even the ending of most of the chapters is open-ended because there's no concrete answer, there's no fact. And on the basis of myth also, we can't take the whole history forward. So,
Before we move to the panelists, I would like to open the forum for the audience to, if they have any questions or queries.
Talking about other caste members, those caste communities which come on the lower rank in the caste hierarchy are taking up surnames similar to those of your clan caste. And the language that you have employed in that excerpt, it indicates that you're not so happy with them. So you reflect more on that. Yeah.
Regarding the tonality, I would say, regarding the tonality of the way I have described that part, you might be correct, right? Because I'm very, like I said in the beginning itself, I am infuriated by the fact, I'm infuriated by the fact when someone does not identify me the way I should be identified. If I am a Jaswal, I should be identified as a Jaswal. There's nothing about Jaiswal, right? We are different, they are different, right? There's a difference. And the way reason that you are unable to recognize me as my identity, I'm intrigued. I'm not so comfortable with that fact. So when people ask that why we can't call you Jaiswal kind of thing, or why is this the thing that what makes you different kind of thing, this was a particular clarity or clarification I wanted to give in the book itself, that we are different kind of thing. So, and when we mention about this fact that to make myself different, I have given the whole repository of such a long period of 1,000 years kind of thing, and there has been no attempt in the other way around so far that they wish to clarify that we also have such history kind of thing, or such, we have also done something or the other, right? But keeping all those things aside, my main concern was that you should identify me with what I am exactly, and don't just compromise my identity just because of the fact you have never heard my name or community's name or anything as such. So recognition is what I was looking for. And I don't agree to the fact that my tonality might have gone up and down to that particular part, which I agree. But then I was very clear about the fact that who we are and how the other set of surnames, for example, like I said, Jaswan, right, which is very different, which and then multiple other surnames also, which looks very similar to our surnames. So any surname that ends with WAL, Jamwal, Darwal, and Jaswal, we all are hills kind of people. The Kashmir, Himachal kind of people. You can find it very generally. That's how we identify ourselves. So, and then there are surnames like Jaiswal and all. These are very different. They have never been to the hills also. They have no idea of how the hills exist also. If you talk about the father's ancestors time point of time, these are the areas they have been sprouting around in and around Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. That's the only scope of their region that we saw in the early history that we see long time back. You don't find any history or particular point where you see them in the northern part and they're being addressed as Jaiswal kind of thing or something. So yeah, that's how. But then I agree to your point that my tonality might have.
Language that were employed for them, like claiming this kind of surname as a means of gaining social mobility, kind of condescending. And also the history that we talked about. Why do they not have a history? That's because the caste community like yours have oppressed them. They do not have a means to glorify themselves. Have you reflected on that in your personality?
So, like I said, there is no commonality for us to oppress anyone. Like we, in the far off areas also, we don't know who the Jaiswals are, even till today, right? Even we don't know who the Jaiswals are, and they have no connections with us also. But let's say there is a surname called Mehta. Even the Mehtas are Jaswals, right? Of certain set of Mehtas. There's nothing about the caste or about that fact that you are from a different, kind of, even though you are a Sardar, even though you are a Sikh, still you cannot be a Jaswal. But that is the fact. There are multiple Sardars who are even Jaswal, who still use the surname as Mehtas and still identify themselves as Jaswals. What exactly is the connection? I've tried to portray it there. But then other than that, talking about this particular caste, for us to even have caste oppression, we need to be in contact in some or the other manner. There's no contact, there's nothing that we have come across, there's nothing that we can oppress about. Like what exactly should we oppress about? In fact, we have been oppressed of our identity for multiple times. So, yeah.
You have been oppressed.
Oh yeah, why not? Because it's us who have been giving our daughters. Yeah, it's us who have been giving our daughters when the war ends. Even at the time of Mughal Empire, it's us who have given the daughters to the Mughal emperors in their harem. If you see, the very reason why we are called Mia Rajputs is the fact that we have agreed to some very, very bad conditions, which I've explicitly mentioned in the book itself. The very condition that if you have to become a Mia Rajput, like this is a very kind of ironical name. You can never hear a Mia and a Rajput. Both are Hindu and Islam. Like it's very difficult to find this particular terminology. When you're having this, we were made to accept that you cannot marry your daughter within any inferior rank, or you cannot marry yourself to inferior. And this is a part of agreement that the Mughals imposed over us. And that is there in Akbarnama. You check it out. That's why I have mentioned it, right? The Jahangir, when he annexed this, he made the 22 hill chiefs sit down, and that's where he mentioned the Mia Rajputs. He said, you agree to these 4 conditions and you have to get it. And in fact, when there was a war of 18, no, not 18 exactly, it was time of Akbar, 15 something. When there was a war, as an agreement, we had given Jaswal daughters, a lot of daughters to Akbar's harem. So a lot of things we have done, a lot of sacrifices we have done, which is not being recorded, which I will agree as oppressions only, right? Now I cannot categorize it as a caste oppression or something, but then no other community had to give their daughters into harem. It was just because we were controlling the Kangra fort and we were requested by the Katoj king that because you are a warrior kind of community, could you please take care of my fort for just 2 months? That's all. That's what he is mentioned in his anecdote, the Katoj king. He goes to Delhi, and by the time he goes to Delhi, his fort is being attacked. And to come to an agreement, we simply you take away our daughters. And we literally gave our daughters. At what cost? Nothing. By the end of the day, my daughters are the Jaswan daughters gone, everything is gone. In return, the Kangra fort is there, and then the Kangra fort goes back to the Kangra people, Kangra dynasty or the Katoj dynasty. What do Jaswans get? Nothing. We are still the same. In fact, we're short of the people, we're short of the respect also, I would say, we're short of the manpower also, we'd say. Because I had to fight a war on behalf of you. And just because of the fact I'm a good kind of martial race, so I have to fight a war. I have to be, I have to agree to the agreement which my brother has asked me. So, yeah.
So I will tell you about Jaswal. So they are backward castes in UP and Bihar, and you must be familiar with the Sanskritization aspect. So I think Gayatri's question was very valid. I also felt it in the book. There was some sort of looking down, towards Jaswals, because I mean, what if they have taken your surname? What the fuck? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, sorry. Yeah. And the same goes, it's a big community. I mean, it's a big backward community who have been actually oppressed. Like, yeah, they have climbed the ladder, I would say, but then they are still in the other backward caste. So I don't think you can actually equate the caste oppression with any sort of oppression that Rajputs or Brahmins, for that matter, face. That would be a very fallacious statement to make. So, maybe, yeah, that was a little bit of, so I think I agree with Gayatri completely, okay.
So in the book, I very starkly mentioned about Sanskritization and everything, that how Jaiswals are Sanskritized and try to have that. But then again, I mentioned the fact that we have nothing to do in their oppression. Like, we have not oppressed them. We never marched down below Himachal or even Kangra district. As a matter of fact, in this very idea of, like, for example, how many Jaswals have gone through IIT Madras itself, or how many Jaswals have taken admission in IITs only? 1, 2, that's all. They're very fast. But that's a different case. Let's not talk about that. But my basic argument is very simple: that we have nothing to do with their oppression. We never came across them. We never came across them, and there's nothing that we can oppress them really about. And if they're using our surnames, like I said, it's matter of Sanskritization, to which I'm not against. But yeah, I've just mentioned that fact that we both are different, and then they have choose Sanskritization, and we have something with a different identity altogether.
You did not oppose Jaswal, so let's say that aside. What about other caste communities communities who were in your region itself, like lower on the caste hierarchy? Did you not oppress them?
See, why would we oppress them? Like, as a matter of fact, yeah. See, what I've gone through, what I've seen, and what I've been doing all across. Yeah.
I'm going to leave, but I was really enjoying this study. But Sushant, I want to say one thing is that finding out archival and archaeological material and putting it on record was great. Very good. But I think Nancy's and Gayatri's and all other, even Vishal and the questions that are coming from the perspective of framing the argument. Okay, I think that is very important because I mean you said that you were compelled to find out who I am. Now, if you are going to already preconceive yourself as Jaswan and then go on a journey of finding out who I am, you are going to be there's going to be a very high level of confirmation bias in what you do, and even more than that, it might lead to a level of exceptionalism, which becomes then sociologically very wrong. I mean, I'm not even entering the gender issue, okay? Because I mean, you said that when you marry, you have to take your wives to the Devi's temple. What about women who get married? Should they also take the husband to the Devi temple? I mean, come on, this is the very basic question that we should be asking. And this is the very basic. This is also, people consider language as instrumental to knowledge. I am saying language is constitutive of knowledge. Knowledge is constitutive of language. So we have to be very, very careful in the way you frame a sentence. You might, it might have been fairly quote unquote thoughtless statement. Shadi ho gayi hai, lete aana hai, that is fine. But it is framed from a male perspective. And we have to change that sentence in order to
language has changed. So I would suggest maybe go back to the language of your again. And I think Jatin said right at the beginning that this might be very good material for further research. I think that's something that you take into account. And all the other perspectives. Okay. But it was a great thing to be here, and congratulations on all of this. I'm good.
Yeah. Any further questions from the crowd? Follow-up questions or anything? Yeah, like another question to you from my side. Imagine if you are funded by ICSR or ISSR, how do you go about, furthering your research, considering all the perspectives that were raised and questions here? So what would you change and what would you still keep if you have that in mind right now? And how you go about it?
Well, of course, like you said, this was my very first attempt, and there was bound to, mistakes were bound to happen, and you learn from your mistakes. So I'm not budging from the mistakes. I won't say that, I didn't do anything. I would say I will accept all the criticisms wholeheartedly, and I would say that if I'm given a chance one more time, I will go in a better way to formulate the language, the tonality of the whole argument, the language, and more about looking from a very broader purview, right? Like I said, it was a very kind of a horseshoe kind of thing, very straight look forward while I'm looking or writing this book or while I'm making this attempt. I was very, concerted or concentrated about the fact that who am I really, right? So I'm going with the question with already considering the fact that I'm already this particular person, and then I'm again trying to figure out that who exactly this particular person is. So rather than going in that manner, I would say I would go in a much broader way. And of course, I have to include multiple other ideas also, as maybe caste, maybe gender, and a lot many other things. And have to, question it in a more, as more of an observer kind of thing, which I feel I lacked in right now. I was more of a member itself talking about his own kind of thing. So yeah, I would work upon that, and again, I'm always open to criticism and would love to take more criticisms every there and now for the better things to come up. Because I believe that learning from one's mistake is the best part, but to become the great, you have to learn from others' mistakes also. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say, see, it's very easy to sit and snipe from the sidelines, but at the same time, it really is a massive accomplishment to dedicate so much time to writing a book. And it's kind of amazing that he's open to discussion. I'm very proud of Sushant for that, and he's listening to criticism. And I really hope that, you've been listening, and, that could make for some great material for the next book if that's coming out. But at the same time, I hope you can be an example in many ways to people in our department who, find it easy to snipe from the sidelines but aren't doing the same kind of thing that Sushant is doing. So that's just something I want to put out there.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you for coming over. Thanks for listening.